On this week's episode, Middle-earth: Shadow of War, our thoughts on The Last Jedi trailer, a Week 6 preview in the NFL, why you need to see Blade Runner 2049, and can Marvel really fix their broken timeline? All this and more as we reach our next stop, the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with another episode of the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Stores. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. Truly want to thank everyone out there who put us for this show, the Friday show, in the top 10 of the Podcast Radio Network rankings once again for the month of September. We truly appreciate it, and we're indebted to you for doing so, and hope you keep on listening and enjoying our shows. It just tells us that you want us coming back for more each and every week, and we truly cannot appreciate it enough. But I couldn't be doing this without my tag team partner. He is the man, the myth, the legend. He is the maestro of Humanican Media with an all-new logo. Ooh, fancy. It's Josh Peterson. What's up, my friend?
Yeah, how you like that logo, man? I figured it was time to step out of the 90s, you know?
Well, it almost seems like it's futuristic in a way. If at point in time football ever decides to go with robot refs, it looks like it's good. It's good.
Hey, I'm ahead of the game now.
There you go, indeed. But definitely a great looking logo for Humanican Media. Check it out, and all the other great stuff that's going on there on Facebook and Twitter as well. Well, we've got a great episode indeed to talk about. Like I said, we've got Middle-earth: Shadow of War thoughts coming up later in the broadcast, and also as well why you need to see Blade Runner 2049, including Josh's thoughts on the film. Got Rob McCallum from robmccallumfilms.com and Tiny Titan Studios. He's stopping by to share his thoughts on The Last Jedi trailer. And also Tyler Baker from the Fantasy Football Pater podcast. He checks in, as always, with a Week 6 preview in the NFL for you fantasy football owners out there. But first, Josh, I know it's something that you and I had an issue of when we saw Spider-Man Homecoming, and it seemed to get swept under the rug for a little while, and I'm glad they're finally starting to talk about it. In an interview with Cinema Blend, Kevin Feige, the head of Marvel Studios, did address the, mishap, or as far as the way that Spider-Man Homecoming dealt with the timeline in an incorrect fashion, because it's coming out shortly in video, and you'll be able to understand what we mean as far as the timeline not being placed after what was represented early in the film. Your thoughts on exactly what's going on with the Marvel timeline? Can it be fixed? And I'll ask you as a second question on top of that, should it be fixed?
Well, okay, so I was trying to figure out how I was going to phrase this. It's to us, it's a big deal, but to the casual fan, or the casual moviegoer, I don't think they really noticed it as much as we did. They probably wouldn't have known that it was there had they not, opened up the internet and saw that it was a problem.
But to me, someone who's actually watched all the Marvel films, and I've gotten on that side, I'm not a super duper comic book fan, but I enjoy the Marvel films. That stuck out to me just like right there, and it had me scratching my head for at least 10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest problem is the age of Tom Holland's character doesn't coincide with the
Iron Man 2 deal.
Yeah. So,
but to me, it's actually the issue of the way that the timeline is as far as the battle for New York, and it taking place at a different point in the timeline than what was represented on screen.
Right, and that's I think they were trying to reach for a something to anchor Spider-Man into the MCU, and I don't know how they're going to fix that. I don't know what they're going to do, whether it's going to be some lines of dialogue or they're going to reshoot a scene or give us a deleted scene or however they want to do it.
Hey, they can just do a graphic on there. That's all it takes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm personally like, I'm super interested in how they're going to, mend these pieces together, but it's one of those things where they didn't really think about it. I guess it's something like, because most Marvel movies are gone over with a scrutinizing eye, and they play it for audiences, and someone should have pointed this thing out. So
do you think actually it's because that Sony handled this picture as far as being the front runner, but they're supposed to do an injunction with Marvel Studios, but do you think therein lies the problem of why this happened as far as this broken timeline being, the wrong number of years being put on?
Do you know what really wouldn't surprise me because we saw the movie and the movie was good, but it really wouldn't surprise me if like behind the scenes it was a total cluster F of just like, it's so many people going on about things. There's arguments about story and connectivity and all that. So it wouldn't be it really wouldn't surprise me if that's how this was, this slipped under the rug. But I don't know, man. It sounds like Sony, especially like because they want to do the Venom thing and all that. They're like, it sounds like they're pretty volatile right now. So I don't know how Marvel's dealing with that.
Well, I see it as a problem because you're also trying to tie in so many other characters within the Spider-Man universe. Donald Glover's character, for instance, as far as within that time frame for later stuff down the road, as far as like you said with Venom universe, but also the Spider-Man universe, because the Spider-Man film did so well, they obviously want to continue with this Tom Holland part of these Spider-Man movies, so they want to continue with that. But it hurts me to see that there was this lack of cohesiveness and the continuity, especially for people that this is a comic book based film. Comic book fans that are out there usually they want their I's dotted and they want their T's crossed. I mean, take a look at the Secret Empire. As far as that was concerned, they wanted things and voice their opinions. They wanted things done in a certain fashion, and whether or not that was the intended route as far as what came out of it, as far as the end game was, that's remains to be seen. But I think a lot of backlash from comic book fans alike caused the ending that ultimately came out of the Secret Empire. In this case, it's just Marvel is very aware of their audience, and at least after so many years, they should be. I just don't get it. Even if it was done primarily by Sony, somebody at Marvel should have screened it ahead of time and noticed that, because it was probably screened. Kevin Feige probably saw it at some point in time. It just didn't click in, and like you said, screeners and somebody should have along the way before it became available for mass release should have recognized this issue, and it should have been rectified. But at this point in time, it doesn't. It looks like what's going to have to happen is to get this thing right, as Kevin Feige says that they're going to try to do to get this thing right. It probably looks like that at some point in time, a graphic is going to be put with the right amount of years on it. And because let's for those who are not familiar with it, the Spider-Man Homecoming, at a point in time where it suggested it was 8 years later. I'm sorry, is that correct? It's about a year off, if I'm not mistaken. Correct? It's a 7 year. It's supposed to be a 7 year difference. No, so 6 year difference. Correct? 2011 was the Avengers movie. That was the Battle of New York. 2017, Spider-Man comes out, so that's a 6 year difference, not 6 year difference, not an 8 year difference. So you have that period of time where it's not spoken for, and that really messes things up along the timeline of Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, and like you said and alluded to, Iron Man 2, that throws everything off there, because the young man in the part where he looks like he's about to die, but Iron Man saves him and gives him his helmet and all that. That is from Iron Man 2, and that timeline gets messed up if you leave it at 8 years, correct?
Yeah, yeah. So because I keep thinking about it, now it's going over and over in my head. So I think I wouldn't be surprised if like Sony wasn't even really paying attention because they spent so long competing with Marvel that it wouldn't surprise me if they didn't even know what was going on with the continuity. So it's
But
one of the
Marvel, as in co-producing this, should have recognized that right off the bat.
yeah, that's for sure. But I don't know, man. Like I've it like even like I even had to see it twice before I noticed it. So it's just I don't know, man. I really want to know like what they're gonna do to fix it or how I at this point I don't know like why they're choosing now to make a big deal out of it. I mean, they should have been doing something about it back when it was first noticed. So it's I don't even know what's going through their heads.
I don't either. I just think it's damage control at this point in time, but it has made a lot of people upset. For me, it's just kind of disappointing because Marvel, for this Marvel Cinematic Universe, has tried very hard to dot all those I's and cross those T's and tried to pattern this all at one time. And we didn't know that kid from Iron Man 2 was going to lead into Spider-Man. I don't think at the time that they were planning on that, but somebody got the bright idea, hey, let's put point A and make it eventually go to point Z. But in order to do that, you have to have your timeline correct. And I'm just very disappointed with both Marvel and Sony for not getting their act together and understanding what kind of timeline it is. They could have just gone to IMDb and just realized, hey, the Battle of New York took place in 2011 because that's when it was released. You weren't putting this in the past. You didn't mention it was in the past at any point in time. The only thing that was done in the past was Captain America, the First Avenger. That's the only movie that was done in the present, in the past, correct?
Right. And it's funny you talk about the little kid thing. I was having this conversation with someone the other day about why, like how that happened, Tony Stark saving the kid at the Stark Expo. And I don't think they planned that. I think that it was just because how could they have known? How could they have known? So I think it's just one of those things that probably showed up on like Reddit or something, and someone's like, wouldn't it be cool if this kid was so and so? And then someone at Marvel got a hold of it and be like, yeah, we should roll with that.
Yeah, and the thing is, with Iron Man 2, it takes place right around the time of Thor. There's actually dialogue, if I'm not mistaken, in either Thor or Iron Man 2, one of those, where they talk about going to New Mexico, if I'm not mistaken, correct?
Yeah, no, that's in Iron Man 2 when Coulson says he's being called to New Mexico and Tony Stark goes Land of Enchantment and they have that conversation.
Exactly. So everything's supposed to fall in place, if that's correct, but it's all within a present tense. And in order to keep that together, the timeline has to stay intact, or otherwise it takes certain people that recognize it, such as you and I, it takes us out of enjoying it for at least even a brief period of time. And I rated Spider-Man Homecoming overall very well. Let's get that out of the picture. It's a great movie, and if you haven't seen it yet, you should see it. It is one of my top films of the year so far. Still there. One of my top films. Not the top, but we'll talk about that later. I am just waiting for Marvel to see what happens because I do think they need to fix this going forward, and I think they will. It's just all it takes is just a rearrangement of the graphics at one certain scene near the beginning of Spider-Man Homecoming, and I think it will set everything right going forward. And it'll be kind of like another movie. Again, a movie we're going to talk about later in the show that itself has its own different cuts and can be interpreted differently by the different cuts that are out there. So I'm hoping that Marvel will do the right thing with it. Any last thoughts on this Marvel timeline before it really gets our numbers all screwed up?
Wait a second, are we in the future right now? Wasn't the Battle of Pop Culture Cosmos actually last year, right?
That's correct, I think, or 8 years ago, I think.
This is phase 1 of our project still, so I don't know. Dude, it's making my brain hurt. What's going on?
You know what? Let's just say this. If you have any questions regarding fixing the Marvel timeline, do you think it should be fixed? Or do you think it's okay to just leave it alone? We want to hear your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanic Media with the great new logo, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. We've got a great show for you today, again, right here on the PCC Multiverse. Got Rob McCallum standing by, also Tyler Baker standing by. We'll be back for 2 more segments, including us talking about Middle-earth Shadow War and why you need to see Blade Runner 2049. That's all coming up and a whole lot more. But first, you know, on Fridays, it's our good friend Plasma Z, and this is actually my favorite song from him. This is Supernova, and this is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back with the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. And if you get, well, let's say, if you cannot catch us on the podcast radio network, either this show, Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific, or our Monday show, which is the #1 show on the podcast radio network, and it's all because of you, 10 p.m., 10:30 p.m. Eastern, 7:30 p.m. Pacific on Mondays. And, of course, the great show, Attack of the Humanicans, on Tuesday, 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. That's okay. For all the Pop Culture Cosmos shows and the PCC Multiverse, you can always download it at any point in time. That's available on at any point in time. I know it's dead right here, but just a second. I had my list. Now it's going to. And it's always available for download right now on any of these great channels. Just type in Pop Culture Cosmos and it comes right up. It's available on the Apple Podcasts, TuneIn, the Ace Podcast Network, Overcast.fm, Player.fm, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Podcast.com, Mixcloud, the ESO Network, the Tangibound Network, the Gunny Geek Network, Cast Crunch, Social Podcasts, and popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. All that great stuff right there for you. And if you download our shows off of one of those channels, there's always some bonus stuff, either maybe from Humanic Media, maybe Rob McCallum Film stuff, maybe it's an interview that I'm doing, an extra interview I'm doing, or maybe it's a full episode of the Cosmic Crossfire. Doesn't matter. It's a lot of great stuff coming up for you. There's always a lot of great bonus extras for you just for listening. And if that's not good enough news for you, I know this will be, because Josh, what are all the great things happening out there in your world known as Humanic Media?
We actually have some content this week. So woo! I know it's fickle, man. These schedules are so fickle with people. So yesterday we recorded a new Topic Apocalypse, which was actually very, very interesting time, because this was the first time there's beer involved. So you can expect a sort of different blend of different type of Topic Apocalypse. Let's just call it that. You know, it's definitely interesting. It's definitely interesting. But yeah, so we'll have you know, I'm recording What About This on this weekend, and you can catch a new Super BS, which we already recorded yesterday, and that'll be up on Monday. And as always, check out Attack of the Humanicans every Tuesday, and you can check out Inside Sports every Wednesday nights. And you know, that's all we got for you right now.
Well, that's plenty indeed. I'll tell you that right now. That's a lot of stuff. You catch all the great shows. You can catch all the information on them. You can catch all the information on them at Humanic Media on Facebook and Twitter, or all their channels on Podbean, Apple Podcasts, Podcast.com, and many more. So, Middle-earth Shadow War, the sequel to the great hit Middle-earth Shadow Mordor. And I'm telling you what, this is supposed to be a great follow-up to what many consider was the game of the year that came out at that point in time. And in fact, was the Game Source, which we run here at the Pop Culture Cosmos, the Game Source Game of the Year for that year it came out. So I ask you, Josh, why are we a little bit apprehensive on what's going on with Middle-earth's Shadow of War? Because the reviews have come in and they have not been very strong. A lot I'm hearing and a lot I'm seeing and a lot I'm interacting with in regards to more of the same. So what do you think went wrong with Middle-earth Shadow of War?
It's the loot boxes, man. It's the in-game microtransactions. That's the big complaint I'm hearing from people, is that it's the, you're paying $60 for a game and then you have to pay for all this extra content. Like, yeah, you can play through it, but we were talking about this on the Super BS Gamescast, is that this game is a game that is kind of being geared towards people who grew up in the Lord of the Rings cinematic phase. So now that we're no longer teenagers and we're in our 20s and our 30s, we don't have time to sit there and play these games like they do. So they put these little microtransactions out there, and they make it in the game so you can either play hours and hours and hours and grind to get all this stuff that you need, or you can just pay another like $60 to have the just be able to play the game and sit back and enjoy it. So it's like, why? Like, why do you need to do that to us? So I don't know, man. Like, the first game was fun, but it was pretty repetitive too, though. I mean, microtransactions aside, the game was pretty repetitive. Am I wrong in that?
No, it did have its moments where you were doing a lot of things, but the Nemesis system was really fun to use. It was revolutionary and way ahead of its time, and now a lot of more games have tried to implement that. And yes, this does go a little bit further when it comes to Shadow of War with the Nemesis system, but it doesn't. It enhances it, but doesn't really make it new in any way, which I think is another issue with the game. Is just like a lot of what I'm seeing is it's more of the same, which is a good thing, but not a great thing. And with the loot boxes, that's a bigger issue entirely, because as so many people out there are starting to get really upset, and there's starting to be a lot of pushback, but still developers and game publishers are still trying to throw this out there. Star Wars Battlefront 2, a game that I am really looking forward to. What happened in the beta? Loot boxes are already showing up all over the place. And this pay-to-win mentality is really not cool after you spend $60 on all these games. It's not cool at all, because you're asking them to pay tens of dollars more just to become competent or stay up with other people. Because at some point in time, somebody else is going to be doing it and going after these pay-to-win scenarios. And especially in a multiplayer environment, that makes it very, very hard, a lot harder for people to enjoy the game thoroughly when they know someone else is going the pay-to-win route, which to me is extremely unfair. And in the case of Middle-earth Shadow of War, going through this pay-to-win scenario, because like you said, I did enjoy the Lord of the Rings cinematic universe. That's one of my favorite cinematic universes of all. And I don't have the time, like you and I both don't have the time to go grind through 40, 50, 60 hours like we did in the past. And so, yeah, it becomes even more tempting to do it, which is great for them. They make more money off it. But is it truly fair after you've already invested $60 in the game?
Right. No, I don't know, like, because, okay, so I know they've been trying to figure out ways to raise the prices of video games for, ever since, the PlayStation 2 came out, and they haven't been able to justify it, really. And this is...
Well, actually, remember, in the Nintendo age, as far as the N64, those cartridges sometimes came out at $70 and $80.
Yeah, that's true, but, I mean... See, I always liked the PlayStation days because you never paid. It was like, what, $40, $45 for a game, and that was affordable. But and then they did raise the they did raise the prices to $60, and then it didn't. People were fine with that, and I don't know, like, why they need more money. DLC is a good way for them to make money. Also, the season pass, which doesn't really do anything, but people still want it. And then, you know, they have these little loot crates out here, and I can see a time when they're going to start charging us not just to be able to buy the game and play it, but also to be able to beat the game. Because I don't know if you don't have a Switch, so I don't know if you got to play Breath of the Wild, but like that's another one of those games where like you don't have to, you know, there's no microtransactions in the game, but it's like one of those games where you have to get these special items to comfortably beat the game. And if you were to do that in a, you know, get to the point where they charge you to actually need those items, or else the game's going to be a huge pain in the ass. Like it was Darksiders, right? That was the game that everyone's saying is incredibly hard. You know, you're basically screwed. You have to spend the extra. Dark Souls, and you have to spend the extra $60 to do it. And I know, like, what was it, NBA 2K17, right? That where you had to spend the extra is like you could buy, you know, spend $100
for your attributes and whatnot. Yeah, that, and then 2K18 does the same thing as far as you have to pay to really get your abilities, or you just have to grind and grind and grind and grind.
Yeah, see, like that's something I always commended the Final Fantasy series on, was that, you know, some of the games were a grind fest, but they still made it interesting, and you didn't have to pay money. Like you can progress and level up your guy and get all the gear you need just by playing through the game. You don't need to have all the extra stuff. And, you know, they make up for money lost by putting out story DLC, and that's totally worth it to me. But these in-game things, it's just they're cornering gamers. They're cornering us into spending money.
And to me, and to both of us, it sounds like it's truly unfair. And at some point in time, there's going to be a pushback, and a pushback really hard, that I think developers and publishers alike will not enjoy. What are your thoughts on Middle-earth Shadow War? Are you really upset with the loot boxes and how it's being distributed? Are you really enjoying the experience of Middle-earth Shadow War, or do you think it's more of the same? Share us your thoughts, popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanica Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. When we come back, our good friend Tyler Baker from Fantasy Football Pater Podcast, he's coming back with a preview of Week 6 in the NFL for fantasy owners, and that's coming up right after the break. This is the PCC Multiverse. And we're back to close out the show. This is the PCC Multiverse. My name is Gerald Glassford from Pop Culture Cosmos and Game Source. We truly appreciate you being part of the broadcast here today. Want to thank Tyler Baker from ffpater.com and the Fantasy Football Pater Podcast for being on the show. Can't wait to hear his thoughts on how Week 6 is gonna wrap up in the NFL on our Monday show. Just can't wait for that. And of course, Rob McCallum, want to congratulate him on his being nominated for 3 Chicago Emmys for his work with the Chicago White Sox commercials that he did before the season started. Truly want to congratulate him for that. You want to check out all of his great work. It is at robmccallumfilms.com. Also as well, his work with Tiny Titan Studios, which you can get on Steam today. Tiny Rails, a great game at $9.99, or also as well Tiny Rails and Dash Quest for free on mobile. Great games indeed. You got to try them out from Tiny Titan Studios. Rob McCallum Films got a lot of great projects, including Kitty, Box Art, He-Man, Power of Grayskull, He-Man and the Masters of the Universe, so many others. You got to check it out, robmccallumfilms.com. So Josh, you have seen it. I have seen it. And the thing is now, because the movie really deserves it, you need to see it. We're talking about Blade Runner 2049. I said in my review, and you want to check out my review, it's on popculturecosmos.wordpress.com. It is at this point in time the best movie of the year in 2017. Maybe a little bit too long for perfection, but my goodness, what's there is truly incredible to the eyes, the ears, and just truly incredible overall. And Denis Villeneuve, that's me golf clapping because it's well done. What are your thoughts on Blade Runner 2049?
I loved it. Loved loved every minute of it.
You said it was, I think your quote was perfect.
It was, to me, it was the perfect movie. It had solid acting, solid storytelling, great cinematography, and it was long, but it had just enough to mystery to keep your attention, and it did a good job of closing up, of opening a story and then closing it, and also connecting the first movie with the second movie. All right, and I've never seen anything done like that before. And they managed to take in a character who, he was in his prime 35 years ago, and make him an integral and interesting character arc in this movie that wasn't actually about him.
And that's the great part of it. It's intertwined so many story arcs from both films together. Blade Runner 2049 integrates the first film so well, yet it has its own unique and diverse story as well as far as the investigation is concerned. It's truly gripping at virtually almost every turn. I say it was a little bit long, but I didn't feel like it was long in the movie. But when I came back, around and I thought about it, reflected on it, wouldn't have killed me if it was taken about 10 to 20 minutes off. I think it would have even made it even more special. It's still going to go in my top 25 all-time list. I don't know exactly where. I'm going to have to watch it again to think about exactly where it places. But it is truly an incredible experience for me. Josh, I mean, it sounds like you enjoyed it even more than I did, and I think it's the best, and I think it's far and away the best film of the year.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting that. Because I've just been going to the movies and I've just been disappointed every time I walk out. And then this is why I was so adamant about not talking to you about it until I watched it, because I was expecting, I didn't want to know anything. I wanted to walk in. Ignorance is bliss in this case. So if you haven't seen it, don't read any reviews. Don't expect anything out of it. Just go in. Make sure you watch the first one, but go in and just watch the movie. Enjoy it for what it is. Because my dad does not like anything. He was excited to watch this movie, and I kept looking over. I'm like, dude, it's a long movie, and then I look over and he's enthralled by it. So that's how that's my gauge of a good movie. If my dad likes it, because he just hates everything. But it was everything was super interesting, and that whole the theme behind it too. What makes us human is something that it's funny because it's a question that we should be asking ourselves now instead of so many years in the future. But it really it was emotional, it was mysterious, it had everything that a good movie needed.
And I'll tell you what, it is just something that people need to see and experience in the theaters. It's going to look great on 4K Blu-ray. I was just talking with somebody, and he can't wait to get it on 4K Blu-ray, and that's great. But you need to experience this with a 20-foot tall movie screen, or even better yet, if you can still catch it on IMAX, that's even better with Dolby Atmos. Oh my gosh, that was just an awesome experience. But if you see it in the theaters, please do so. I mean, if you can't see it in the theaters, please do so, because this is truly an incredible movie experience. And again, we think it's the best film of 2017, and that's separate from both of us, and that's us seeing it in separate places at separate times, having separate opinions on it. And I just really think people need to go ahead and give this movie a chance, and it deserves to do well. It should be remembered in Oscar time. It should be remembered by everyone now, and shouldn't be freaked out by the length of the runtime or whatever. Or you didn't know the source material, you didn't watch it. It does help if you watch the source material, but you don't have to understand or watch the movie, the previous movie, I mean, best way I'm going to say this is, it is more helpful if you watch the previous film, but if you don't, you will not find any less enjoyment out of it. I still think you will enjoy it tremendously because it is such a visual and audio experience. The sound design and score is just truly tremendous by Hans Zimmer, and Roger Deakins as the cinematographer, just a magnificent piece of art. And Denis Villeneuve, the way he engineers everything in virtually all the scenes. There's some couple scenes where I thought could have been left on the cutting room floor, but for the most part, like I said, it's just truly, truly awesome experience. And this comes from two people who did not truly enjoy his last effort, The Arrival, which was so high up on everybody's top 10 lists. And I'm going to leave it with you, Josh, since you were the last one of us to see it. Why should they see Blade Runner 2049 and cannot miss it as a theater experience?
Mostly because it's the first thing that the critics have actually enjoyed that I agreed with them on. So, you know, if you've been following us at all over the years, you know that I hate everything the critics love. So, you know, this is a truly great movie, kind of revolutionary in my eyes. But yeah, it just makes me sad in the end, though, that it did so little in box office revenue. I have no doubts at all that's going to make back the 150 million that was spent on it, because what it's at, like 90 right now, 90.
It's
90.
closing in on 100 worldwide, but
yeah,
it probably will top out at maybe 200, 250 worldwide, unless it gets a longer run due to getting some acclaim at the end of the year as being one of the best films of the year.
Right. Well, because the last one fell short of its budget in earnings, didn't it? It was like, it cost what, 80 million to make?
No, the first one cost 28 million and made 32. But you got to remember, there's also, with this one, it's more than just a straight 150 when it concerns marketing and other costs, costs and whatnot.
Hey, they didn't exactly market it very well. So remember when I was talking to you about how I think that more people would have gone to see this movie had the stores like Target and Best Buy and whatnot run campaigns to get people to this movie. So re-release Blade Runner, like they re-released it in 4K, but you couldn't buy it in any store. You had to special order online. If they were to like put up a marquee and have, you know, these Blu-rays sitting in it, and people walk by and say, hey, free, you know, $7 off when you go see the movie, I really think that it would have gotten more attention than it did, because a lot of there was hardly any marketing for this movie. It was trailers and more trailers. That's it. That's all I remember seeing. There's no like action figures. There's no posters. There's no re-release.
But they couldn't even release as far as a lot of information, because critics were told specifically that they couldn't release pretty much any information on the film, so they couldn't really give away anything that might bring people in. They also put trailers out there that were not very descriptive of what the movie was about. So maybe that also haunted, that also came back to haunt them as in regards to how not to market the film. But still, the great word of mouth and the great word by the individuals and the critics out there, and also as well, a lot of social media I see a lot of social media just going at as far as how great this film truly is.
Right, but I also think that as movie fans and filmmakers, like, they need to stop catering to the whiny baby critics. And you know, Martin Scorsese did an interview with somebody, and he was saying that like these aggregate sites are the reasons that box office numbers are so low. A lot of people are like, you know, if the critics don't like this, I'm just gonna wait till it comes out on DVD, or I'm gonna pirate it or something instead of paying the money to go see the movie. So I think that filmmakers need to stop catering to critics. They need to start catering more to the people who go to watch these movies. They need to build up an interest among the fans and not among the crybaby, whiny, you know, critics who like to bash on movies all the time.
And in case of some of the films that we've seen this year, that would be us as well. but we will go that later this year. We will go into that.
This is it though, but because like even like every time we talk about a movie, like I specifically state that I respect the craft. I respect what went into making this movie. But like you read some of these reviews and they don't just go after the movie. They're going after the filmmaker. They're going after the actors. They're going after all this stuff that they couldn't do themselves. And that's what kind of irks me about critic culture. But we can talk about this later.
We definitely will indeed when it comes to our worst 10 list. Or we'll probably do a top 5, bottom 5 list. How about that? We'll go with that indeed. So definitely looking forward to that later down the road, and love hearing the part where you'll tell me, but Gerald, you're wrong. But we'll have to wait and see on that. If you have any thoughts on Blade Runner 2049, did you enjoy the film? Or if you're not checking out, why are you not checking out this great film, which right now we think is the best film of 2017? You got to share your thoughts. popculturecosmos@yahoo.com. Also as well, Pop Culture Cosmos, Humanity Media, and Game Source on Facebook and Twitter as well. And one last bit of advice. If you do go see a movie this year, please, we know you're going to probably see Last Jedi. We know you're going to probably see Justice League. We know you're going to probably see Thor Ragnarok. We know you're going to see maybe a couple others. But please make every effort to go see Blade Runner 2049, because we really, from both of us, we really think that you will enjoy it, and it'll be a great experience for you as well. So Josh, any last thoughts on the way out?
Yeah, I didn't realize that we have a buttload of good games coming out in the next couple weeks.
That we do. Wolfenstein 2, Super Mario Odyssey, Assassin's Creed Origins.
Go back and play Forza. Dude, there's a lot of good stuff, man. I'm going to have to, jeez. I'm not going to have time for all this, man.
But you got to take care of N++ and Maze first.
Yeah. Yep. I do.
And I gotta take care of NASCAR Heat, and I'm gonna throw that up there, and I'll be able to share a review and some thoughts on that on our Monday program. So check that out. Indeed.
I was talking to somebody a few weeks back, and they were asking me like, "Hey, isn't it cool to review video games?" I'm like, it's the ones every once in a while you get like ones that you would rather not play, but you still review it anyways, and then. You more often than not, you get the games that you don't want to play over the ones that you do. So
this is true. It's true. But as we get more people out there knowing and discovering exactly how great the Pop Culture Cosmos, PCC Multiverse, and Humanity Media is, you never know. They may start falling into our laps one day, indeed. So for Josh Peterson, this is Gerald Glassford. It's another beautiful day right here in the PCC Multiverse. We thank you for listening. And here's hoping you have yourself a great